Excuse me, sir.
Welcome back to Stephen King Month. So last time we left off, we were at Cujo, and today we're going to be going to a cemetery. Isn't that lovely? This film is directed by Mary Lambert and follows a family of 4 to a house out of the middle of nowhere. There's a highway that has constant truck activity, and right next to it is a little path that goes to a pet cemetery. But beyond that, there is a sacred Indian burial ground that, if you were to put a body into it, it will come back alive. But a little bit different. This film is kind of odd. There's a lot of tropes in this movie that is very typical to horror genres today, like the Indian burial ground thing. That's been done to death before. But what makes it unique also is that they resurrect the dead not as ghosts, but as real creatures and characters. It's kind of odd to me. This film has a lot of really good stuff about it. The intro and the follow-up to it is really well done. You get a sense of what this movie's going to be about. An essence of family and love and all this other stuff. You get a sense of existentialism. And it has messages about morality, which is really great. And what would be these messages of morality? Well, basically, if you were at a task to resurrect the dead, would you resurrect the dead for the sake of your own sanity? Or would you just leave the dead alone? Because maybe dead is better. And it's a really great sort of moral questioning in this film. Now, does it stick on that too much? No. It just keeps it very simple and plain. In fact, they really start doing the whole resurrecting stuff about 25-30 minutes into this film. Which is kind of great, because we do get a nice little short amount of time to get to know our family a little bit more. So that the effect of what's going to go on later in the film is really well done. The gore effects as well is really, really top notch. There's a lot of really memorable special effects makeup in this film that I just enjoy. But there is one thing I have a problem with in this film. There's one character in particular that gets introduced, and we don't exactly know much about this character. She's a character that lives right next door to where the Creeds live, but to be honest, she doesn't really have any sort of impact on the story whatsoever. There's even a little subplot with the mother character where as a kid she was caring for one of her loved ones and she had fibrosis, and it just doesn't make too much sense. I mean, I guess you could make the argument that it's about, her side of the story and like whether or not there is an afterlife. It's kind of interesting, but it's just kind of there. There's even one part of the movie that I kind of have a theory for. It's not a very solid theory, and it's up for debate, but I want to point to the daughter character of this movie. See, every time she has a dream, a lot of the times it's a kind of a recap of what happened the scene before. What I'm theorizing in this case is that what if the daughter character has the shine, like Danny Torrance in The Shining, where she predicts what happened, or she can feel what happened. It's kind of not really played with too often. It's just there every so often to keep the audience moving, but I think the daughter character has the shine ability. Again, it's very debatable, and I would put it out there as well. What's also pretty good about this movie is, once again, it's very, very simple. Even its rules are simple to follow, and it's really, again, it's well done. You have characters who die, who go to this cemetery, this Indian burial ground, and they get resurrected. And they come back a little bit more evil. It's very simple and very straightforward. That's all I have to say about it. It's straightforward. It's not very complex in its themes, but you could analyze some things. Like one part of the movie where the mother heads home to at the end of the movie, only to get killed by her son. Spoilers, by the way. The truck that she is hitchhiking on has the number 666 on it. So you could make the assumption that the devil drove her to her death. It's kind of weird, but it's also kind of there. But yeah, this movie has a lot of great stuff in it. There's a couple things here and there that don't quite make sense, but it's still a fairly enjoyable time. And the message of the movie is pretty straightforward. Sometimes in life, there are people who will die that we love, and sometimes we may want to get them resurrected. But the problem is, maybe we should just let the dead be dead, and let our lives go through life, knowing that they might still be with us in spirit, but they will still be dead. That's kind of it's kind of a botched sort of version of the message, but it's a fairly nice message to have at the end. My only gripe with the ending is that once the titles play, it starts playing this rock music, and it makes no sense. It's not a very emotional part of the movie. But there is some very, very emotional parts, especially when the dad has to take out the cat and his son, the resurrected cat and the resurrected son. There's a fairly emotional moment with that, and it's fairly subtle, and it's really well done. It's a nice sequence of events, too. He has to put down the same people he loved before. Cats and, characters that he failed, and he has to do it again. It's fairly emotional, and I enjoyed it. So overall, do I think it's a great movie? No. It's good, but it has some stuff that kind of wavers a bit. It's pretty well done. It's a pretty nice package. Just some of the few loose ends here and there that don't really get explained. So in the end, I'm going to give Pet Sematary a B.
Hey yo, critic!
Yes, what do you want, sir?
When are you going to review a bad movie?
I mean, all you've been reviewing this month is good movies, great movies, and meh movies. When are you going to review a bad Stephen King movie? Well, I was about to get to that until you stupidly bogged into my own conversation with my viewers. Can you leave me alone? Thank you. Sometimes you get a horror movie that's so well done that you don't want it to be a sequel. You don't want to have it be a sequel. You just want it to stay as it is. Today's not so lucky. Pet Sematary 2 is not a direct sequel to the original, for obvious reasons. Pet Sematary 2 is directed once again by Mary Lambert, and she should totally be ashamed of herself, as it follows a boy and his father. After the death of their actress mother, they move out to the countryside, and his father is a veterinarian. And that is a pretty good start to a movie, but it quickly degrades into absolute fucking trash. I'm not kidding when I say that this is one of the worst Stephen King movies of all time. You can say anything about Secret Window. You can say anything about Dreamcatcher. You can say anything about The Langoliers. But Pet Sematary 2 is garbage. Let's start off with the number one problem with this movie. It doesn't follow the rules. It sets up some neat rules about how maybe if a bad guy gets, resurrected, he'll be a good guy. But they throw that shit out the window with the father character. Yes, once again, played by Clancy Brown. Welcome back to Stephen King month. This movie's logic makes no sense, and the logic of the original, the simplicity of the original, gets thrown out the window. And it's not even a good replacement. It's so haphazardly done that I blame the writers and the studio that produced this garbage. It's like they looked at the ending of Pet Sematary and saw the gore effects and whatnot, And they're like, we could totally do a film like this. Let's make a Stephen King film that is bloody and gory and misses the point of what made the original good. The original was meant to be a vehicle of grief. The original was meant to tell a story of how grief can impede on our own judgment. This one doesn't have that. It lacks any sort of emotional core. It lacks any sort of good acting. There's weird fucking visuals in this film. There's certain dream sequences where there's a mother in a chair with a dog head for no reason. Now, you could make the defense, it's like, oh, well, Mary Lambert's trying to do what Stanley Kubrick did in The Shining. But here's the problem. Stanley Kubrick had an excuse. The hotel was actually haunted. Here, the area is not haunted. The Indian Burial Ground is not a haunted place. It's a place where you resurrect the dead people. That's it. The dreams don't make sense at this point. There's a lot of problems with this film, and one major problem is that it's vulgar for the sake of being vulgar. There's no rhyme or reason to have the vulgarity or the bloodiness of this film. There's no reason for anything in this film. And it's sad that we get some pretty decent talent in this movie, and it's just all wasted. Everything about this film has wasted potential. And it's all wasted on the most cliched of stories, on the most cliched of tropes, on the most terrible of acting, and it's just so bad. It's baffling that a concept as simple as Pet Sematary could be bastardized to the point where it's absolutely laughable. So yes, is there any good to come out of this movie? No, there really isn't. Nothing about this film, again, makes any sense. There's really nothing else. There's really almost nothing that connects it to the original, other than the fact that it uses the same locations from the original. It uses the same, house from the original, only it's decrepit, and they have the Creed mailbox and the pathway to get to Pet Sematary, but that's it. There's nothing else in this movie that is recognizable as Pet Sematary. It's terrible. Everything about it. The script, the acting, the performances, the lighting, the cinematography, the nonsensical script, again, the concept being too overbloated, and the fact that Mary Lambert, a person that made a pretty good Stephen King movie, went on to direct this movie. I don't know a lot about the production behind this film, but I can sense some studio involvement in this film. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments below, but this movie is god-awfully terrible. It's supercalifragilisticexpialidociously terrible. Pet Sematary 2 gets an F-. It fails the original concept of what made the original good. It's blatantly terrible, for the sake of just being terrible. So next week, or next time, rather, we're going to be going to a lot in Salem, where we're going to meet some vampires. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.